I love gardenias, and so Joe would buy me a wrist corsage of gardenias. I think it was for Valentine's Day, and it's just a tradition, and he surprised me with it. And I was surprised that people actually saw it on my wrist. But I guess with a zoom lens, you see everything.
I think it's important to, and Jill does the same thing, let each other know, no matter how much time has gone by, how I got criticized for saying this a while ago, but they were asking me a couple years ago. She comes down the step, it still goes a little boom, 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 for real.
I, Joseph Robinette Biden Jr., do solemnly swear.
On January 20th, Joseph R. Biden was sworn in as the 46th president in our nation's history. While nearly 40 million Americans watched on television, only 1,000 attended in person. Due to the pandemic, the normally packed crowd of supporters was replaced with a sea of American flags, making the event almost as surreal as it was historic.
This was one of the most consequential inaugurations in a long, long time. The state of the nation is between everything from COVID to unemployment to dealing with racial inequality. And we wanted to make sure that as many Americans could participate as possible. And it turns out millions of people watched it. Millions of people watched it.
I thought it was really uplifting. And just from the musical talent to the poet, to Joe's speech, and what he had to say to offer hope to all Americans. And people, one of my colleagues said to me, Jill, she said, we felt a part. We felt like we did this, like everybody came together, and whether they contributed $5 or whether they wrote notes or whatever they did, people felt a part of it. And I think that's what made it unique and made it really very special for us. So even though we were in a pandemic, I thought it just felt so positive and uplifting to me.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President-elect of the United States, Joseph Robinette Biden Jr. and Dr. Jill Biden.
It seemed so surreal the whole day, but when we walked down that hallway, and then where they were going to open the doors that Joe would walk out to be sworn in, it hit me at that moment when they opened those doors. And I could just feel this lump in my throat. And two of my grandkids said to me, Nana, we saw that, that it hit you. And I thought that was so funny because I thought I was hiding it so well. And, but that was the moment it became real for me.
The moment for me was being sworn in, looking at the chief, and seeing out and Jill holding the Bible, and our son and daughter standing there, and I could see behind them my grandchildren. And it just made me feel so proud that we were all part of history here, and our together, all of us. We, all the kids, the 5 grandkids, 6 grandkids, and our son and daughter, and son-in-law and daughter-in-law, they all quarantined for the 7 days ahead, and we all spent time together. So it was an enormous. It was just for us, like most people, families, the beginning, the middle, and end, and it meant so much to me that they were there, and it also meant so much to me. And Jill's going to warn me not to say this because I sometimes get emotional, but I won't, is that Bo was there, and our son Bo, who was an incredible man, and he was there in his namesake. His nephew, Bowie, was there, and it just, I don't know, it just seemed like it.
It seemed complete.
Complete.
The pandemic also prohibited the traditional slate of inaugural balls, so instead, the Bidens celebrated as a family in the Blue Room of the White House residence.
It was great. There was no place I would have rather been than be with the kids.
It was still magical. I mean, it really, the whole night was magical.
And they, I mean, you know, the thing that I guess may be hard for people to understand, which I would have trouble understanding if we're not in the situation, from the time each of these children were born, their grandfather had been either a United States Senator or a Vice President, and they have had to learn to be happy and grieve in public. There was no private time for them. And it just seemed like when we got in the house, I mean, I remember opening the door and walking through and it was like, okay, it's us.
Yeah.
It's us, you know.
The excitement was palpable.
No, it was. And it's just, but we're so fortunate to have the son and daughter we have and the grandkids we have. It's just, I don't know, it was just, and they work like the devil to get here too. I mean, they work like the devil, and they're they really they felt good about it.
With 6 grandchildren enjoying front row seats to their pop's long life in politics, one wonders if they might want to seek office themselves someday.
Well, the truth is, I don't know whether they want to ever run for office, but I'm going to say something. I can say this as a grandpop. They are so damn informed. I was trying to explain to somebody this. It's kind of like if you were raised in a family where your mom was the president of a bank. You'd know about mortgages and you'd know about all, you'd just be, with them, it's hard to believe, but we've never separated them from what we've done. So they've met everybody that comes in our orbit, and they have a sense of obligation.
And all the kids are involved. I mean, the girls marched in the Women's March. I mean, they're aware.
Without, you know, they just show up. I said, what'd you do? Well, we went to the Women's March, Pop. They sit down around the kitchen table, we all eat together, and the conversation will be about, well, Pop, what do you think is going to happen? Will Putin sign, re-up in the arms control treaty? I mean, you know, they're 15 years old, you know. We've included them in everything we've done in terms of, from the time they've been kids. One of the favorite pictures I have is, I have it on the desk upstairs, is Ashley, our daughter, who was then 3 years old, and we're at a parade, and the flag is going by, and she's standing there like this, without anybody telling her to stand there like that.
No, they've never known anything but public office, public service.
But they care a lot. That's the thing that really makes me feel good. Everybody knows I like kids better than people. I just, you know, they used to joke. I remember a couple of my colleagues were talking about why didn't we go off, a bunch of guys go off on a skiing trip, and my whole life, not a joke, I'd always rather be with my boys and with my children, and I like being with everybody else, but if I got to go away skiing, I went with the boys and my daughter. I went with my grandkids. I mean, so to me, it's the thing I care about the most.
Congratulations, Mr. President.
The Bidens were married back in 1977 when he was still a first-term senator from Delaware and a single father after tragically losing his first wife and their baby daughter to a car crash 5 years earlier. It's a testament to the Bidens' unique bond that their relationship has not only survived, but thrived after nearly 44 years of marriage.
You know, everybody says marriages are 50-50. Well, that's not true. Sometimes you have to be 70-30. Sometimes when somebody's down, the other one steps in. And the good news for us has been, thank God, that when I'm really down, she steps in, and when she's down, I'm able to step in. And we've been really supportive of one another. And it's just, I know, I've read all that data as well, you know, about families under pressure, but it's been, and that's why it's so important that I'm glad she kept her profession. No, I really mean it. I think it's really important that she's an educator, and I have supported it all the way through from the time where, although she took off 2 years when we first got married because the boys were little, but you know, I think it's important she have the things that she cares a great deal about, her independence and yet we share each other's
Yeah,
interests.
and I think, you know, with all that we've been through together as a couple, you know, the highs, the lows, you know, certainly tragedy and loss. You know, there's that quote that says sometimes you become stronger in the fractured places. And I think over time, you know, that's what we hope for, that's what we try to achieve.
I think we each could have done our jobs like the other, but not as well as we do them, and not with this kind of, I'm not sure, but for Jill, I don't think I would have stayed involved in public life. You know, Jill came along at a really important point and put the family back together. I mean, she's the glue that held it together, and I knew that I wanted to marry her shortly after I met her, and that's not a joke. Everybody, one of your former colleagues was doing an event on, I was doing an interview in the executive office building when I first became vice president. It was Valentine's Day, and the night before, Jill got the maintenance people to bring a 16-foot ladder in, and she took that stuff with that kind of paint the kids use in their school.
Poster paint.
Poster paint. And she put in every pane, there's like 20 panes in each of these big 4 windows that are 15 feet high. And she drew hearts and says, "Joe loves Jill," not Jill loves Joe. And so we're coming down those steps, the press was coming down, and I got a phone call. My press person got a phone call saying, would I go on, I think it was CBS the next morning on Valentine's Day. And they said, do it. So I went on, it was a reporter, we're sitting there getting ready for the interview, you know, it was dark in the room in the second floor of the executive office building, and we're kind of knee to knee back when we didn't have to wear masks, and the reporter looked at me and she said, everybody says you and your wife have a great love affair. And I said, I think so, but I said, everyone knows I love her more than she loves me. And she looked at me and said, that's what everybody says. That's what everybody says. But at any rate, so, but it really, you know, it's not that we don't fight and argue sometimes, but I don't know, I just think I'm just lucky.
Well, after 43 years of marriage, there's really not that much more to fight about.
Dr. Jill Biden has been an educator since the 70s, and as First Lady, she will continue her role as an English professor at Northern Virginia Community College.
I teach writing, and I taught all 8 years that I was second lady, and so it was, I mean, as Joe knows, that's my passion, that's my life, and it meant so much to me that educators across this country supported my husband. And so I knew that as soon as we moved in here, one of the first things I would do would be to connect with educators and say, you know, this is our moment, and try to lift up teachers and celebrate who they are, because especially in this pandemic, you know, we've seen the strength and the resilience of our teachers. And so that meant a lot to me. And then, of course, I've been doing a lot with military families, and I went to visit a cancer clinic, and it was important to me that governor spouses got to know, I want them to get to know me. I mean, the whole theme, I think, this week in Joe's administration has been unity. And I think it was really important that day one, we were showing that kind of unity. And so I asked governor spouses to meet with me over Zoom, of course, and tell me what they were doing, what was on their minds, share our stories. And that's what we hope to do going forward.
The thing that surprises me is how much energy Jill gets from her students. I really mean it, because the students she teaches, what's the average age now? Probably
28.
28 years old. These are people who are struggling, many of them, to come back to school, or weren't the people who graduated from high school and loving school, but they're remaking their lives, and it's inspiration. Jill will come home without, I don't know their names, we'll never read the names, and say, listen to this. And this, this young woman with 3 children who was abused and she made it out, or this, a lot of her foreign students coming from other countries who have been, and it's just, and what I'm amazed by is the response of the students, how it's Dr. B. There used to be, my first take on this when she was teaching high school, when we first got married, we'd be walking through a mall at Christmas time, and people would yell, hey, hi, and I'd wave back, no, not you, no. Dr. B, I really mean it, not a joke. And so I think it's energy for Jill as well. It's a lot of work,
been busy, but it's been so many different things, so many different areas. And Joe's been working hard on foreign policy and, of course, his new rescue plan. And so we have a lot to do, but we have a lot ahead of us, and we feel good about it. We feel like people have hope that we're moving the country forward.
Also helping to move the country forward, of course, will be Vice President Kamala Harris.
I made the same deal with her that Barack and I made. I wanted her available, participate in everything that I did. I wanted her to, as I told her, I wanted her to be the last person in the room. When Barack and I were working out our relationship early on, he said, do you have any requests? And I said, well, just one. I get to be the last person in the room on every important decision. Not because you have to listen, you have to do what I want. You make the decision. But there's no reason to come into administration where you don't get to and leave a job that I had where I was fairly influential. And he honored that. So we do the same thing, Barack and I. We have lunch alone once a week. That's the deal. When we're both in country, which we will be for a while because of COVID. And I see her, all the time.
And I think that's one of the best things of our administration. I was so proud when Joe chose a woman to be his vice president. And then, I think it meant so much to all women across this country. And then to see her there, to see her get sworn in on Inauguration Day was really part of the excitement, and it just showed, Joe's beliefs and how much he respects women.
The Bidens have only had 2 weeks to get used to their new home at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, but so far, so good.
Well, it's surreal, but it's comfortable. We are in a, we were here for 8 years as vice president, not in this part of the residence. We've been a lot. Spent a lot of time here and in the cabinet room and in the Oval with the president, but upstairs is new. And we found it kind of surreal when it didn't seem like that much was changing, including the inauguration, until we walked through the door with our grandkids. It was like, oh, I guess things have changed.
But the staff has been so great, trying to make it feel like home for us. And so we have family pictures all around and our books and, things that we brought from home, some furniture. So a lot of it feels like home.
Yep.
And in case you're wondering, Champ and Major are also adjusting just fine to life at the White House.
They really don't have any rules. They're really good dogs. And
well, we trained them from the beginning. Champ is old. He's 14 years old. And he was extremely well trained by the Canine Corps, and he thinks he's Secret Service. But Major, who is a big little dog, is about 1.5 years old. And the only rule Jill has, and he follows it, cannot get up in the furniture.
Yeah.
The beds, furniture, except when our granddaughters stay overnight,
he sneaks in
and jumps up in the bed with them.
Yeah.
With a deadly pandemic, an economic crisis, and a divided nation desperate to heal, President Biden has a full plate for his first 100 days. And while this isn't the ideal time for Congress to be impeaching our former president, Biden nevertheless told a CNN reporter that he does believe the trial should go forward.
What I was referring to, they asked me whether or not they thought the trial should go forward. They didn't ask me whether or not he should have been impeached. He was impeached by the House. And it has to move forward. Otherwise, it would come off as farcical, what this was all about. I'm no longer in the Senate, obviously, and I don't know what is likely to happen. It's probably not likely that to get 17 Republicans to change their view and convict on impeachment. But I think it's important that there be certain basic standards that people at least are able to see what happened and make their own judgments. I'm not looking for any retribution. I'm not looking, it's just my job is to try to heal the country and move us forward, because I think we have so many opportunities as a country. I really do. I've never been more optimistic in my life about the prospects for the country. And but I was responding to the question, should, in a sense, the trial go forward? To say now no after I don't think it makes a mockery of the system.
No doubt President Biden will be a busy man in 2021, but he has high hopes for where we'll all be by the start of 2022.
I hope that this time next year we have moved to the point where we have fundamentally returned to normal as it relates to COVID, where, people will have, and it's going to be hard because, they're predicting another 150,000 dead unless we take precautions, even with the vaccine. I also hope that we have found our way, that we have really begun to make inroads into equity for all people. And I think we have a chance to do that in terms of the jobs we create, because I think it's a great old saying that is somewhat used facetiously. It's great when conscience and convenience cross paths. Our conscience dictates that we deal with the problems we face, but it's also an incredibly convenient opportunity to fundamentally put people in positions where they can have decent jobs and decent opportunities and real change. And so I hope we're in a position where the economy is growing, people are back to a degree of optimism about themselves and their families, and our health is in position that is fundamentally different than today. That's my hope a year from now.
That's our prayer.